Ladies and gentlemen, I have 6:45 on my clock. I want to welcome you to the February 2023 meeting of the Minnesota Woodworkers Guild. It's good to have you here on our virtual meeting. My name's Ed Noy. I'm president of the Guild, and I'm supported by a very active and very supportive board of directors of 8 other individuals. And I would like to ask some of you out there who are really interested in knowing how the Guild works and being an integral part of the Guild's operation to consider joining the board. We have an open position. I'm actively looking for someone to help me manage our membership. Our previous membership director, Bill Lammers, had to take a leave of absence back in the summer, and that position's been vacant ever since, and we really could use the help. So if you're interested in helping this guild grow and serve our community, please drop me an email. You can find my contact information on the contact page of our website. Just want to remind everybody, make sure you're on mute as the presentation goes along tonight. If you have a question or a comment you would like to interject, please use the chat feature of the Zoom application. It's down on the bottom menu bar. It says chat. Just click on that, type in your message. One of our program committee members, I think it's Matt LeBeau tonight, will be monitoring that, and he'll interject any timely comments that need to be made, and our presenter can tend to that. For those of you who are brand new to the Minnesota Woodworkers Guild and this might be your first meeting, welcome. If we were meeting live, I would have you all stand up and tell us who you are and what brought you there. But that's a little bit cumbersome to manage here on the virtual meeting, so we'll dispense with that tonight. You know, one of the big advantages of being a member of the Minnesota Woodworkers Guild is the opportunity to take advantage of the numerous discounts and deals that we can get from our local supporters. And you can find all of those either at the bottom of our homepage or on our supporters page, which you can find at the top of our homepage. And please support them because they support us in many, many ways. Let's see. We got some big events coming up. The most immediate one is our annual tuition grants program. This is where we issue a $1,000 tuition grant to 2 of our applicant members. This application process has been open for a couple months. It closes tomorrow night at midnight. So your last chance to apply for a $1,000 tuition grant. Take a look at that. It's right on our website. Look up there on our menu bar, and you'll find it quite easily and fill out that application. Coming up after that would be our annual Northern Woods exhibition. Charlie Sorick has been chairing that for a number of years and been doing a phenomenal job. He also has a very supportive and very active committee that helps him pull that off. That is April 27th through the 30th at the Eden Prairie Center. We have been accepting applications for pieces to be entered in the show for some time now. There again, you find that right on the top menu bar of our homepage. You can apply for that until I think it's the 16th of April, as I recall. But don't wait too long. You know, make sure you know what get your project done, get some finish on it, give it plenty of time to dry, and make an entry into the exhibition. We're expecting a really good show this year, like always. And then after that, we got coming up in October, on October 14th, our annual Woodworkers Expo. The expo is growing quite a bit this year. We had a good growth year last year, and that encouraged us to expand it even further this year. It's going to be held October 14th, Saturday, one day only, at the Expo Center at Canterbury Park. We've got a lot more space there. As a result, we have a lot more exhibitors who are very interested in coming to exhibit with us. So just keep tuned in to the website and the various announcements that are coming out for that October event. And then, of course, we'll have our fall seminar in November. We don't have any details on that yet. The committee is still working on procuring a presenter and establishing a date for that. As we've been doing ever since the pandemic hit us, these meetings are being recorded. You all got a notice of that through the Zoom interface. And once the recording is downloaded and we can go through it and edit it and get it processed, we'll get it up on our YouTube channel, and we'll put out an email to all of our members letting you know that it's there and you can go take a look at it, especially if you weren't able to join the whole meeting. Usually at every meeting, every live meeting, we have door prizes. Our Vice President, Richard Tendick, has been very diligent over the years, and he goes out to one of our supporters and procures a number of pieces of hardware to give out. We haven't figured out how to shove those through the internet yet. So what we've been doing is we've been issuing gift cards to either Rockler or Woodcraft. Last month, let me look over here at my other screen. Last month, we handed out door prizes to Lawrence Weisner, Kalen Call, Ron Beerbaum, Sid Nystrom, and Chris German. And they all got a gift card to Rockler. And I think this month we're going to probably do a Woodcraft gift card. And what we do, we randomly select 5 names out of the list of participants in this meeting, and we get that list off of our Zoom interface. So just hope you get an email here in the next week from our program director, Mike Johnson. He'll let you know if you're a winner of a gift card or not. And let's see, I don't see anything else on my agenda that I need to talk to tonight. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over to Lonnie Bryan. Lonnie has been one of our dedicated members of the program committee, and he has been the one responsible for setting up tonight's meeting. So Lonnie, go ahead and take it away on your end.
Okay, we're ready, Lonnie.
Good evening. My name is Lonnie Bryan. With me today is Tom Caspar. And Tom is going to show us his jig for sharpening scrapers. He'll also show us a little bit of use of a scraper and why his jig is important. Now, Tom comes to us with a lot of background. I think most of you know him. He's been a judge at the Northern Woods. He's shown at the Northern Woods. He also has been in the craft industry, the wood making industry, furniture making industry for what, 37 years, 40 years, 50 years. Okay. And he started though with a major in political science. And they got a job at a Swedish crafts school here, woodworking, and started making one-off furniture that is one-of-a-kind furniture. So and then at that point, he graduated to being a magazine editor. So he is erudite. He is also, it's a hard word to say.
Thanks, Lauren.
He's well spoken is another way to say that. Let's all give him a hand and hand it over to Tom Caspar.
All right.
Yep, there we go. Now we're on. Whew. Wow, that was a long way to get here. Hey, welcome everybody. We're going to talk about scrapers tonight. And just to give you a brief overview of where we're going for this thing. First, I'm going to show you how a card scraper, this is the thing we're talking about, what it does, why you would want one of these things, what it can do for you. And then I'm going to move on to how you sharpen it, which is really a stumbling block for most folks. It's wonderful to watch somebody do this, but if I can't get it sharp, might as well just put it on a shelf, let it rust somewhere. And in sharpening it, I've been demonstrating and instructing people how to sharpen these things for nigh on 30 years now. And I've observed dozens and dozens and dozens of people attempting to sharpen a scraper, based on what they know from books, magazines, YouTube videos. And a lot of them, I asked them at the beginning, did it work for you? And they say, not really. It works sometimes, not other times. So over the COVID break, if I can call it that, I decided to come up with a better way of sharpening a card scraper using a jig. I'd never tried that before, but I'd like to show you that tonight for the first time. And then after that, I'm going to tell you a little bit briefly about how to build a jig just like it. It's really simple, nothing complicated. So let's move right on to what you do with one of these things. So I want you to think of a card scraper, this piece of metal, as like super sandpaper. So if you need to remove a bunch of wood, not as much as a plane, without leaving any scratches. So it's like 60 grit sandpaper that doesn't leave scratches, which is pretty darn cool. So let's put this to action. Get a close up on here. This is a piece of ash, which is a pretty hardwood. So you hold the card scraper in your hands like this. You put your thumb at the bottom. And then you pull back the ends lightly. You don't need to form a huge arc with it, just enough so that the center of the card scraper cuts and not the edges. Then you hold it at the correct angle this way. And this angle is hard to figure out on your own. I mean, not what the angle is, but hard to see when you're getting it right. So here's my simple solution to figuring out how you're going to hold the scraper. It should be held at this angle, 67 degrees. You think, well, why not 66 degrees? Actually, anything around there will work, but 67, for those of you math wizards out there, is halfway between 90 degrees and 45 degrees. That's the magic of the 67 number. So again, thumbs down the middle, pull back lightly here, and just push like this. And what you should get are shavings.
So Tom, does it matter if you're going with the grain or against the grain?
It doesn't matter at all. And that's one of the really cool things about scrapers, Lonnie, is that they do not care which way the grain goes.
And it leaves the same smooth surface?
Yeah.
Either way.
Well, slightly rougher going against the grain if the grain is really going the wrong way. But let me demonstrate. I mean, you should ask that question. So here is a board, piece of walnut. Which way does the grain go on that one, Lonnie?
Oh,
It goes
several directions.
every way.
Yeah.
It's corrugated, goes curly wood, the grain goes like this. Okay, this is a perfect wood to use a scraper on. So let's put it back here. So if I have just run this over my planer, a joiner rather, it did a pretty good job of it, but I really want to find out if there are any areas of tear out in it. And if there are, I want to remove the tear out with sandpaper, scraper. That's the way to go. It's just faster. So the way to find tear out, same thing if I had hand planed it. I really want to know, is there some obscure area here that's torn out? So the way to do that is to take a piece of fine sandpaper, 220 grit, and let's go over this. This is right off the joiner. Let's see what happened, okay? At the very least, I know I want to get rid of the jointer mill marks, right? Oh, back and forth. And I think you can see this perhaps over here, the lines left by the knives in the joiner. This is a helical head, so it leaves these long parallel lines. So I know the wood isn't smooth. But I'm also seeing something else come up. What do you see right here, Lonnie?
Like tiger stripes.
Well, no, right where my finger is. These are little
Flame.
miniature divots in the wood. They're cavities in the wood that are getting filled up with sawdust. So that
Yeah, for
is
sure.
called tear out. And when you put a nice finish on it, Ain't gonna look so good. So those are like little cavities that the blades
Yeah.
tore out. And the question is, well, how do you remove, how do you get down to the bottom of that stuff to make it smooth? Well, you can pull out a random orbit sander, right? You could. I don't. I pull out my scraper instead. So a random orbit sander can often leave swirly marks in here, and a scraper won't. So this is a better way to do it. So let's try this, all right? So you're asking about grain direction, right? And the grain direction here, it's this way, right? It's going every which way. So let's see if we can get rid of the tear out here, some of these marks right here, just using the card scraper. So you can see I'm getting nice little shavings, somewhat similar to what a plane will make. Not sawdust though. The whole mess up.
Yeah.
So divots, are they gone?
It looked like it.
Kind of.
Would you run the 220 across it again? to be
Yes,
sure?
I certainly would. So let's just get these out of the way. Sand again. And you can see we're not quite there yet.
But they're much less.
There,
They
yeah.
don't- They
You're-
don't look as deep.
Well, clearly you're making progress, right? You're removing wood. So you're getting down to the bottom of those divots.
Right.
And I don't know if you could tell this, but the amount of wood that I just removed with the scraper took less time to remove more wood than you could with a sander.
Well, and the other thing is it didn't add any.
Well, there's no scratches.
Right, it didn't add any extra tear out.
No tear out. Didn't matter which way. I didn't even look at the grain. So let's see about these marks right here that are created by the jointer.
Sure.
So we want to get rid of all this stuff before we put a finish on this stuff. So you just go over the whole surface like this. I'm going to stop here. Just take a look. That's, again, the kind of shaving that you actually want to get. And then I'll always go back and sand it again and see if I've removed all the marks left. And that looks pretty darn good.
So are you concerned about making this surface here less than flat?
Well,
Maybe because you took more.
yeah, so that's one of the downsides of doing, well, any kind of removal, you're what I just scraped here is a extra shallow depression. But unless the finish that you put on there is really glossy, you won't see it. It's only a few thousandths of an inch deep, so you really can't tell unless you see a reflection of yourself in it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So it also, by the way, just as a strategy here, if you have a small area of tear out, you don't want to concentrate all your strokes right there, because that will make a depression that's visible. You want to spread it out over a larger area. So the other kind of wood that's, for instance, really useful for using your scraper is something like this stuff. This is, well, it looks, when finished, something like this. If I rotate this around the light, you can tell that that is, got a significant amount of curl in it.
Yes.
And this is the kind of wood that once it comes out of the planer or off my jointer, I don't try to hand plane. I just go right to a scraper instead, because it's just too risky to plane it. And if I had a large area to do, like a whole tabletop or something, I would use a different tool. I would use this tool called the number 80, which is a scraper blade set in a body. And since the number 80 has a sole, S-O-L-E here, it keeps the surface relatively flat. And since my hands aren't on the metal, they don't get as tired and as hot as using a card scraper. So we're not going to go into how you sharpen and use this tool tonight, but I gotta tell you, this thing is an invaluable part of the hand tool toolkit, but it's the Rodney Dangerfield of hand tools. Because why not?
Why? Because it doesn't have a soul.
No, it gets no respect. No respect. A lot of people don't know about the number 80, but it's a really beautiful tool. Anyway,
So you're pushing with your scraper. Do you ever pull with it?
yeah, you can absolutely pull or push.
Okay.
Yeah, so without changing your stance, you can go either way. It doesn't, I mean, the wood doesn't care. This is a little more awkward to pull than push when you're first starting out, though. So again, the curly piece of wood, you know, you just come across here like this, and as you can see, I'm getting, you know, rolls of wood, and not just little sawdust. If that was all I was getting, I know that the edge was dull.
Would it also indicate that you may want to change the angle that you're holding the scraper?
Oh, you could experiment with that. Yeah, it might help. It might not. But usually what happens when a scraper gets dull is that the hook on the edge, which I'll go into in a few minutes what it looks like, is actually getting bent back. It's not that the edge is dull, it's that the hook is getting bent and you have to re-bend it. So it's a really weird tool in that you can, quote, sharpen it just by rebending the hook. You don't have to go back and use a file or anything else to actually abrade the metal. You just reform the hook and you get a second life, maybe a third life out of the scraper. I'll show you how all that works in a few minutes. But another situation where you might want to use a scraper, not just smoothing a board. I mean, that's cool as it is, but there's many other applications where you have, something like a project that you're working on. Now this one is all finished. So obviously I'm not going to do any scraping on it, but in order to get these miters even and to get the sides of the box right here, even with this, again, I could have sanded all that, but after gluing it, the best way to level all this is use a number 80 first to keep it flat and then finish up with the card scraper.
And why not use a plane?
Well, you could, but a plane you run into questions of grain direction, don't you? And sometimes you either go across the grain or you just can't plane in the direction that you want, whereas a scraper doesn't care about grain direction, so you just have at it.
Thanks.
And it takes a much lighter cut also. You can, I mean, the scraper shaving is extremely thin, so you're not removing very much wood. So let's go into how you sharpen one of these things, shall we? Yeah, the guts of this thing. Okay, so I'm going to put this one aside and take another one here. Same thing. So the first thing you do is to take a burnisher, and I'm going to go into what these tools are that I'm using after we go through the sharpening process. So rather than bore you right up front with what they all are, I'm just going to say, here's what I'm using. So burnisher is just a steel rod. It needs a little bit of honing oil on it. And the first thing I want to do is to take the hook that's right here. There's a little ridge of metal. Lonnie, I'd like you to put your hand across there and see if you can feel anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You feel something, right?
Right.
Well, before I go into this, this is what you're feeling. That's what a scraper looks like when it's working. It's cutting at this angle, 67 degrees, right? And that means the hook is almost at 90 degrees to the wood.
Okay.
So that's the critical thing. It's not that you're cutting at 67 because that ain't gonna do anything. You're cutting at 90 degrees. A plane, as you probably know, cuts exactly at 45 degrees. This is much steeper, and that's why you don't get any tear out. The higher the angle, the less the tear out.
Sure.
So the lower the angle of cutting, the more tear out you possibly will get.
Okay.
So again, almost 90 degrees, you can't get much steeper than that. But this thing right here is the hook. And when you ran your fingers across here, this is what you were feeling. And it's swear you can't see it, which is why scrapers are so mysterious to people. You can't, unlike a chisel edge or something, you can't say, what is that thing on there and how should it feel?
And I imagine if I ran my finger this way, I might get a cut.
Band-aids. Don't go to anywhere without them. I was ready for that one.
I've never done
Yeah, no.
that.
See, and I put one right on my hand here so I wouldn't forget. So anyway, that's what you're feeling with this. But before we sharpen it, we have to remove this, flatten it out. So this metal is soft enough that I can deform it with this rod because that's harder than this.
Okay.
The rod has to be harder than the scraper. So you can't just use a screwdriver, for instance. It's not hard enough. So anyway, because here's the deal, just to anticipate where we're going. When we sharpen this thing, we're going to begin by turning the corners into 90-degree angles, exactly 90 degree. And as you know, when you sharpen a chisel, how can you tell when one, like the bevel, intersects with the back? How do you know when you get there? What's the telltale sign? When do you stop sharpening?
When it's polished all
No.
the way across on an even line.
Yeah, no, when you when you're in your hand like this and you feel that you've got what's called a wire edge,
Oh,
right?
okay, a
Remember
little
that term,
burr.
wire edge? Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that word, Lon, because I'm because I am banning that word from all discussions of card scrapers.
Okay.
And here's why. Okay. So a burr is a word that can describe two completely different things, which just makes it confusing. This is why people really have trouble learning about card scrapers. This I'm going to call a hook. That's deformed metal,
Okay.
right? A wire edge is what you get when you sharpen something and there's a little ridge of metal, a little flap of metal that's waste material that's kind of come off. That's a wire edge. People use the word burr to describe a wire edge and a hook. They're completely different. They feel the same, but they're not the same.
Okay.
So are you with me on that?
I am. I don't quite understand what the difference is.
Okay, ask it a question.
What's the difference?
The difference is a wire edge is something you don't want, you're going to get rid of. A burr is something you do want and you make it, you form it.
Okay.
It's much more substantial than a wire edge. A wire edge will just fall right off if you start wearing it.
Okay.
A hook, that will stay there. So
Got it.
we're making a hook. So here is why we are going to flatten out the hook first. I'm going to take the burnisher and rub it across this surface like this until you don't feel that anymore. The reason is when we start sharpening, we sharpen until we feel a wire edge. Well, if we didn't flatten out the hook to begin with, how could you tell when you get a wire edge? You can't. So I'm going to hold the burnisher like this with my thumb above the spot that I'm going to press down on. Hold it like this and just run it back and forth. 5 or 6 times. And Lonnie, run your finger across that now.
Yeah, it's not there.
It's gone. So it's not that it vanished. We just bent it back down. Okay. Then I'm going to do this to all 4 sides of the scraper. So in the UK, this tool that I'm using, which we call the burnisher, they call a ticketer. Maybe you know why.
Ticketer. No, I don't.
Well, what sound is it making?
Okay. So it's named after the sound it makes.
Yeah, kind of
Yeah.
cool, isn't it? Okay, so now we're all done
It's
with
very
that.
original.
There's no, I didn't make it up. There's no hook on this whatsoever, right?
Right.
So our next job is to remove the metal from the top of this until we get to a wire edge here and here, which will tell us that this surface has intersected with that surface,
Okay.
okay, at a sharp corner. And the way we're going to do this is really insist on the angle being exactly 90 degrees on both corners. Why? Why obsess about 90 degrees? You don't have to know the answer, Lonnie, but
Good.
take a stab at it. What if, okay, I'll prompt you, okay? Lead the witness. What if this angle was something like that? Instead of 90 degrees, it was, an oblique angle like that.
It would be harder to get the hook.
You
Make
could
the
get
metal
the hook
bend.
on this corner, the high corner. Good luck on the low corner.
Okay,
You can't.
sure.
So the only reason that you need 90 at both corners is to get two edges. If you made it arbitrarily at some other angle, you get one good one, but one not good one. So that's why over the years, everybody's obsessed about a method to get exactly 90 degrees. And they've tried all kinds of methods. Some of them work okay. Some of them are really kind of workish. I'll show you mine.
Great.
All right. 90 degrees, right?
Yes, 90 degrees.
Okay, so now let me introduce the jig.
The jig.
It ain't much of nothing. It's just a vise. In fact, I used to teach scraper sharpening, just saying to all my students, oh, just use the vise on your bench. That's all you need. And I thought, well, that's great. My vise works that way. And then I realized that most people's workbenches are, a lot of them, that is, are kind of so-so. The vise is all beat up. It doesn't have a big, nice flat surface over here or here. So I thought, well, what's the answer? You make your own, a new vise just for sharpening like this. And what this is a Moxon style vise, to use a fancy term. It's just a bar with two screws on it. So I can put the scraper right down in between there.
Okay.
But that's going to hold it nice and square to this surface. And I can easily adjust the height on it. That's the other problem with bench vices, is sometimes they don't grip things all that well, especially thin things like a card scraper.
Do you have sandpaper on the inside there to help with the grip at all?
No, because you can tighten the heck out of these things, and that scraper isn't going to go anywhere. So let's stick her in there. First of all, I'm just going to sharpen one side of this to begin with. Here's the fish logo. I'm going to sharpen the top side just to keep track of things.
Now it looks like you have a locking washer on the.
Yeah. So the way this works, there's I'm going to just show you real quick. What I'm tightening right here is a hanger bolt that is threaded into the wood. Okay. And in between the knob and the bar here is one washer, one lock washer, and another washer, and then the knob.
Okay.
So this is, because it's threaded into here, it's really secure, not going anywhere. So to make this vise, this jig, all you have to do is get these things going in here. And if you've never used a hanger bolt before, it's really simple. The way you drive it into the wood is by double nutting it. Put on one nut, put on a second nut, take two wrenches, tighten them together, and then the whole thing will turn to drive it into here.
Okay. I believe you.
Okay, anyway, the purpose of the good. The purpose of the lock washer is to enable you to find what I call the sweet spot, which is the position of the handle here that allows you to raise and lower the card scraper.
So it kind of puts a little bit of tension on
Yep,
the card scraper.
without it dropping to the floor.
Sure.
And that's, again, what is really hard to do on a lot of vices, find the sweet spot. But here it's no problem, because we want to get it, I'll show you in a minute why. You want to get it at a precise level to do the sharpening.
Okay.
Okay, so just enough, and then I can move it easily. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. There's another part to this jig, and that is here. It's just a stick. That's it. something pretty fancy, except, well, there's something unique about the stick. And Lonnie, and maybe I'm going to hold it up on the end here, and maybe you can tell me what's different about it.
Oh, it's got an angle on the end.
Yeah, 5-degree angle on one side. Other than that, it's just a stick. Nothing more, parallel sides. Okay,
Okay.
that's going to enable us to get exactly 90 degrees. And here's how this works. Yeah, you're looking like you're not going to believe
Well,
this.
yeah, I mean, we just went through that there's an angle on that.
Yeah.
How the angle is going to get it to 90 degrees.
The angle doesn't enter into anything until we put the hook on.
Okay.
So for just the sharpening process, we need to get to 90. Forget
Right.
the angle. Just pretend that it wasn't there. Okay, wipe from your memory, right? Okay. So I'm going to place this.
Easily done.
Place the stick here. It's trapped between these two little pieces of wood here, so it won't slither around. And what I'm going to do is to bring the stick close to the scraper. This is the 90-degree side of the stick, right? And then what I want to do is to lower this thing until it's exactly level with the top. Okay, just by feel.
Okay.
Simple so far?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can do this.
Maybe.
Then tighten up the bar. Okay. And then we're going to slide the stick away a little bit. And then I just want to ask you, Lonnie, if I were to sharpen this with a file held like this, what angle would I get?
90.
Oh, quick. Quick off the drum there.
Huh?
Yeah. Is that really close to 90? It is 90.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's as close to 90 as you need to be. And that's going to guarantee that it's 90. Obviously, this is not what we're going to use, but it illustrates the principle. No, what we're going to use is a file to remove a lot of metal fast on the top edge until we can feel a wire edge develop here.
Okay.
Okay.
I take it that's a metal file, not a rasp or a wood file.
No, it's a single cut bastard.
Yeah.
Or I'm
I
sorry,
was trying to avoid
a single
the word.
cut single cut
Okay.
mill file is what it's called. Single cut cuts finer than a double cut. With the double cut, the
Okay.
teeth
Sure.
are going in both directions. Basically, any file will work. This is just the best one. An 8 or 10-inch single cut mill file is the best for doing this. But whatever file you buy at the hardware store, okay, that'll get you there.
Thanks.
All right. So I'm going to hold the file in what most people would seem as a really unorthodox way. So files are kind of strange in that they, unlike sandpaper, they cut different amounts of material in different, depending on how you hold the file. So with sandpaper, doesn't matter how you hold it, right? Same grit. With a file, you basically have 2 grits. You're looking like can't possibly be true.
Well, I'm waiting.
But it
waiting.
is.
Come on.
It is, yeah. So when you push a file this way, and you probably know that a file only cuts on the push stroke. It doesn't, unlike sandpaper, it doesn't do squat on the return stroke. So the right protocol for filing is push, lift, push, lift. If you go back and forth, you're dulling the teeth. And a file expert would go bananas. So push, push, push like this. If, however, you angled the file the correct direction, which would be like this, so that the teeth of the file, I don't know if you can see that up close, are oriented the same way as the object I'm filing, and push, you make a smoother surface
Okay.
than this. Same file, different direction, different quality of surface. So let me hold this in place. So what's going on, by the way, the teeth on the underside of the file are going the complementary angle to this, not the same angle. So the teeth are actually like that underneath
Right.
here.
Got it.
Okay, so this process is called straight filing. And this angle is called draw filing. And everybody who knows about files has known this forever, that files do this. And we're going to take advantage of that in making the smoothest surface possible on here by draw filing. So I'm going to place the file on the jig, orient the teeth like this. You with me so far?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. And then just pull. There we go. Do it again. And if you had a microscope, or no, even a magnifying glass, you could see that the little shavings coming off here are actually little spirals of metal. That's telling you that it's all working okay. And I want to keep draw filing like this until we create a wire edge here. So just remember the Band-Aids are right here. You got to be careful when you do this kind of stuff. But I'm pulling my fingers up like that. And Lonnie, I'd like you to do the same thing here. Just run your fingers from there up and tell me what you feel.
Feel the wire edge.
And the reason I got one so quickly is because this scraper wasn't very dull to begin with. But sometimes it takes a lot more filing before you get the wire edge on both sides. That's important. But here's this thing about wire edges that you need to know, guys, and that is that the bigger the wire edge you make, the more work it's going to be to remove it. Bad.
Okay.
So the key is, as soon as you feel a wire edge develop, stop.
By removing it, we're going back to the beginning when you use the burnisher here, correct?
No, that was just bending something. We want to actually remove this metal, not just bend it. Okay. So again, with soft steel like this, the bigger the wire edge is, what happens when you attempt to remove it is that it ends up flipping, flopping back and forth from one side to the other. It's kind of like when you bend a paperclip back and forth, and the metal fatigue eventually, wins and the thing separates. Well, the same thing with a wire edge. It can flop. The bigger it is, the longer it takes to get it all off. Now, what we're going to move to next is a diamond file. So I found that a diamond file is the best way to get this surface really, really smooth. I don't want to use a Waterstone or something like that on it because it would dig a groove into it like immediately.
You could groove in the stone.
In
right?
the stone, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you could use an oil stone too, but they cut really slow. So I found that diamond files like these two are the way to go. So this is all diamond here. They're different grits. This is the green side is in the DMT series is a 9 micron, and that's pretty fine. And then this is a 25 micron on the red one. So this is the coarser. Let's call this coarse, this medium, and this fine. Just a
Okay.
simple way to do it. So obviously, when you're sharpening a chisel on it, to go back to another world of sharpening, when you create a wire edge, you put the chisel on its back down on the stone and rub it on the stone, right, to remove the wire edge. And the question is, well, which stone do you use to do that with? Is it the one that you just used for creating the wire edge?
I use a finer grit.
Yeah, you use the finest one you've got because you went to all the trouble to make the back really smooth and polished, right? So there's no point in scratching it up on a coarse stone. So when I'm going to rub one of these things along the side here to help to remove that wire edge. And what I don't want to do is scratch it up any more than I have to. So I'm going to take the finest diamond file that I've used. That would be the green one. And use that only on the sides.
Okay.
So this is very similar to chisel and plain blade sharpening in that respect. Okay, so I use oil on my diamond stones to help float the metal particles and to keep this thing clean. Some manufacturers say use water only. I've never had a problem using oil like this. And this is an old-fashioned can of sharpening oil from oilstone days, which I'm proud to say I was a member of many years ago, back in the Paleozoic era. I learned on oil stones, used up that oil ages ago. This is homemade honing oil, which you can do yourself as well. It's just half mineral oil from the drugstore and half mineral spirits, paint thinner. Mix the two together, honing oil. That'll work. Lifetime supply.
Cool.
Or buy the real thing. What the heck? So anyway, I got to be really careful. Band-Aids, that you don't run your fingers along this edge because it's sharp. Okay, so I'm going to hold this nice and flat along here. And same thing here. Back and forth like that. And my goal is to keep going until no wire edge. Okay.
Got it.
So now again, like chisel sharpening, you go through the grits, or like sanding wood, right? You start with a coarse grit, you move to a medium grit, then you finish with a fine grit. Well, we're going to do the same thing here. So that was my finest. So I'm going to do the medium next. A little bit of honing oil, work around your fingers. And use the same 90-degree technique.
Okay.
Right? I mean, this, that holds it at 90 degrees, doesn't it?
Right.
So back and forth. Not worried about angle or anything here. The diamond stick doesn't care. And if you were to clean this surface, which you got to be, don't do it with your finger. You know, paper towel or something to wipe that off with and see your progress. So you don't want to see any file scratches if you've used a coarser file to begin with. You want to keep doing this with a diamond until it is really smooth. And you might then feel a new wire edge. Yep. Tell me, Lonnie, if you can.
I believe you.
Okay, good. What a guy.
You've got me convinced.
All right, there's one right there. So again, I'm going to either braid part of it off or bend part of it back. Hard to tell which is happening, but I know both things are happening. Back and forth like this. And then use my the green side to make this even smoother. So the smoother the metal is, the sharper the edges, the longer it's going to last, the better results you get. Blah, blah, blah. But when you're on the last paddle like this, you have to use the same technique that you use in chisel sharpening and plane blade sharpening. And that is, on the very finest stone, you work both sides of it a number of times, not just the bevel side. So I'm going to go back and forth, do this a bit, and then do this a bit, until when I'm done, and this usually doesn't take very long, this surface is shiny and there's no wire edge.
So are you concerned about getting wood fibers in your file? By resting it on
by
that
resting on
piece?
this, I use a piece of really hard wood here, so no, it's not an issue. And if it is, you just clean them off. So you can see all the metal particles left on there, right?
Okay.
All that dark stuff.
Yep. Got
Well, again, the reason for the oil is that now gone, keeps it clean. And a clean stone is a happy stone, more or less. But you know, no, it cuts more efficiently when there's no grit stuck in it. So no matter what kind of stone you use, you always want to keep it as free of the fancy word,
Grit.
swarf.
Swarf.
Yeah, you take that
Swarf?
home. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I learned a new word.
yeah. Say it 3 times fast.
That's
No,
okay.
it's okay. Stuff. You can just call it
Stuff.
stuff. That's okay. But yeah, you want to keep these things clean. And again, with the oil in there, it just comes right off. No big
Okay.
deal. Of course, you contaminate everything you touch, but you just got to be careful about that. Takes me back to the 1980s when I used to sharpen everything on an oil stone. Oh, that was a long time ago. All right. So
Most of us were.
no wire edge anymore. But now you want to make sure that it's sharp. And the way you do it is if you're brave, you use your finger nail by pulling your fingernail backwards over the surface like this. And there's a particular feel that you will get when it's sharp. It feels like it's going to catch. If your fingernail just glides over that surface, that corner, it's not sharp. So back to the honing.
Okay.
Okay, that's sharp. Okay, so now we're going to form the hook, this thing. And this is a rather mysterious process in some ways, because the first thing I'm going to do is to take my burnisher and put the scraper on its face right here and burnish the hook facing in. And then I'm going to put it in the device here and burnish it facing out.
Okay.
I know that's weird. It helps. It isn't a necessary step, but it's a helpful step. And it's easy to do. So here's how it works. Unscrew this. On the bench. Burnisher. Thumb above the surface you're going to press with. Lower it at just a slight angle, a couple of degrees, no more, not precise. Back into the ticketing. Okay, just like we ticketed before. Flip it. Ticket. Done. Now, back in the vise. And we have to set it to a different level because now we're going to use that 5-degree angle that was on the stick,
Okay.
right? Because that's,
Sure.
there's lots of people have different ideas about the correct angle. I would worry about too much about which one, just get the process down right. 5 degrees works pretty well. So I'm going to set that so that the angle is going downhill like this towards the scraper. Stand it up here and then set the scraper again, same principle, level with the stick. Till it's just even. There, that's even there. That's even there. Tighten. Done. Move this away a little bit. Another drop or two of oil on here. It just makes this thing, burnisher, work better. So hold that on there like that. This was the same angle as that, right? Did I have the right angle up? Oh, no, I didn't. I'm talking too fast. That's the angled side. Everybody
didn't
makes
catch it.
mistakes, right?
I
You
didn't
didn't
catch
catch that, did you?
No, no.
Okay, this is the angled side, not the
That
other
was a
side.
magic trick, I'm sure.
Yeah, no. Well, and I like making mistakes when I demonstrate things, and some people don't know that I'm doing it on purpose.
I got
And the reason for that is because sure as heck,
Because
you're going to make that
you-
same mistake at home,
it.
right?
Yeah. I'll make it regular.
Yeah, so you
Several times.
so you might as well just see it here and learn how you can recover from it. So
Cool.
I'm not embarrassed by
Good
it.
job.
Okay, so now that's all going downhill like this, right? Angled side,
Mhm.
square side. Move it back a little bit. And so this gives you a controlled angle when you form the wire, the hook. So hold it like this, pull or push. 1, 2, 3. So I'm pushing down pretty hard. I'm not trying to do a handstand, but it's pretty hard. And then to do the other side, well, shoot, just turn this around. Put it on this side.
Okay.
Same thing. 1, 2, 3. And now we've gone from basically square edge to holding the burnisher. Let's see this. The last one I did was this way, right? That one.
Yeah.
That angle bearing down on that corner forms this. Again, you can't see it, but you can sure as heck feel it. I think, right?
For sure.
Yeah, so that's not a wire edge. That's a hook. And that's it, done. So without all the yapping, you can do this whole process in,
I wasn't
oh,
yapping.
in just a, no, me. I'm the one yapping.
I wasn't.
Yeah, you're off the hook. Oh, that's bad pun. And just to set you up for that one, didn't I? You can do the whole thing in just a few minutes. And this the jig itself, pretty simple. Cool. So
Did you have any
release it.
questions? Mike?
Well, just one other thing before, for those of you who want to make something like this, or by the way, I made a few extra when I designed this one. This is not my prototype. This is, I built 20 of these things. So I sold half of them to my students already, and I still have a few left over. If anybody wants one, just contact me through the guild. But for those of you who want to make it at home, you should know a couple of things. Well, first I showed you the hanger bolt thing. Then the scraper itself is, a normal one is 6 inches long. The distance between these things is 6 3/4.
Okay.
So close, but not tight around it. And then the rest of the components here are just 3/4 inch wood, nothing fancy. That's pretty much all you need to know. I made it in 2 layers, so there'd be, so this bar, oh, by the way, that's a 1 inch by 1 inch piece of wood. So that's not just 3/4 stuff. So big stout bar, it needed extra layer, and it puts the clamps out of the way of everything too.
Well thought out.
Well, it
If
took me
they
a few
buy it
tries.
from you, it's signed and numbered, right?
Yes, signed and numbered, and this is it. This is the world premiere of this thing, and I'm just reinventing someone else's wheel. If odds are somebody
I've
else's,
never seen it.
yeah, I've never seen it
Okay.
either. I've been around the publishing world for a long time, but I've never seen this before. Probably because no one would go to the trouble. They'd say, "Oh, I could just use a vise or something to hold it."
Yeah.
But I found that when you have everything controlled like this, in a really nice, secure way of holding it and getting it in just the right place, then the rest is a piece of cake.
You're closer to God.
Yeah, well, it ain't that nice. That's right. So what else do I need to tell you guys about this stuff? Oh, burnisher. Some come with handles. This one from Hawk Tools does not. You don't need a handle. It's cheaper without a handle. I find it's just fine. But this has to be harder and very, very smooth than this. So some burnishers still need more polishing when you buy them. The scraper itself, these come in 2 different thicknesses by and large. You want the thicker one for general purpose scraping like I was showing you earlier. There's a thinner one also, so beware of which one you're getting because it's hard to tell in the packages. The thinner one is good for curved work, but it's not as stiff as you want it for general scraping of surfaces. So this is a 0.080, if that makes any sense. And then there's all kinds of different diamond paddles that'll work. These are really nice ones because they're really long, but even the short guys will work in the system. That's fine too. But you want to get one that is the finest that you can possibly get. Because again, you can't make things too sharp. You can't make things too polished. Just go for broke. And using the system, it's not hard. This, to remind you again, is a single cut mill file, 8 to 10 inches long. I bought this one through Lee Valley. There, you might be able to find one in a local hardware store, but I doubt it. But any file will get you started. Is there anything else? No, that's about it, right? It's pretty simple overall.
Well, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
If I get the mic.
Yeah, so there's a lot more to know about scrapers as well. Curved scrapers, different shapes, all kinds of stuff. You can do curved scrapers on this as well, but we'll save that for another time.
So a couple of questions online. I believe you just answered the first one. It was, can you give a list of the tools that you used, which you just did. So I
Did I
believe that
cover
sounds like-
everything, guys?
I believe you covered all the tools. If you
It's not many, right? Burnisher, paddles, file, something to keep the file clean with, just a brush, and oil of some sort. Ding, that's it.
So second question, excuse me. Have you ever used the shank of a twist drill or
Yes.
router bit?
Yeah, it does work, but please wrap tape around the cutting edges of the, And you don't want to use the part of the drill bit that has numbers embossed on it. But if you want to use a 3/8, so the diameter of the burnisher matters. If it's too big, you won't get enough pressure. So this is a 3/8 diameter. So yes, you can use a 3/8 diameter drill bit, but you have to wrap the flutes of the drill bit with tape so you don't cut your hand up, and then be aware of anything written on the drill bit or any scratches on it. Yes, but in a pinch that will work. Or the back of a carving chisel. This is what my mentor, the old man who taught me a lot of things, he just pulled out one of his carving tools and just went right at it. Okay.
So one final question was, since we got a little bit of time, would you want to talk a little more about the number 80 scraper?
Well, I don't want to go into too much detail about how you sharpen it or use it or anything like that. I do want to say something more about how you use the card scraper. But there's one thing I want to point out about the number 80, and that is that it's not sharpened at a right angle. So the blade does not look like that. I don't have a blow up of it, but taking that protector off, you probably can't see this, but the angle of sharpening is 45 degrees on it, not 90. And you're
Like a
looking,
plane.
no, plain blade is sharpened at 30 or 35 degrees.
Okay.
So the cutting angle of a plane is 45 degrees, though. When you put the plane in the body, then it's cutting at 45, but the sharpening angle is different. So the reason that this is sharpened at 45 degrees, what benefit would that be? Well, I'll answer my own question. The benefit is that you can form a larger curl because the metal is easier to bend.
Okay.
So the number 80 scraper can make a more aggressive shaving than a card scraper. So that's another advantage to it.
Does it still have the wire edge? The hook?
Yes, there's still a hook, obviously, because scrapers have to have a hook.
Okay.
And the way you bend it, like I bent the card scraper, is by tightening this thumb screw right here. Tightening that puts a little bit bend in it, and that sets your depth of cut. But back to use of the card scraper, because a lot of people struggle with this. Even after they've mastered how to sharpen it, they struggle with how to use it. So let me show you real briefly the trick for learning what to do. So here's the mistake you might make. Go back to the one that's sharp, I know. You don't want to just put it on the wood and press down, bend, and push. I cannot move that because the hook is digging into the wood. You just can't even get going. So the secret to using a card scraper is to learn how to land like an airplane doing a pass-through on an aircraft carrier. Basically, you come in for a landing and then you pull out. So you're in the air first, you land, scrape, rise up again. So instead of starting like that, I can't get going, glide in and glide out like this. I mean, I'm exaggerating what I'm doing. Basically, when you get going with it, you can't even see somebody, lifting it up, but that's basically what you're doing. You're gliding in and then gliding out. If you try and start like this, ain't gonna happen.
Got it.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
It does.
Well, the whole thing has a whole logic to it. It's pretty simple. But until you have a sharp scraper in your hand and you know the technique for how you scrape, then again, you might as well just not even bother. Go back to the sandpaper. Once you figure this out, though, it should be like a super valuable tool in your shop. It's definitely part of my toolkit. This and the number 80. Use these all the time. But it doesn't eliminate the need for sanding unless this thing is absolutely freshly sharp. Then you might not have to. But after scraping, I would still go over it with the finest of paper, maybe even more than 220, depending what you're doing.
Sounds good.
But that's all. I mean, you can go right from having milled a piece of wood to sanding with 220. Now that's not bad.
Not at all.
instead of sanding forever, you know, with going through a whole bunch of coarse grits and everything. So are
Do
we
you
done
use
for-
a similar motion for the number 80 scraper?
No, that's a whole different thing. As I said, that's a neat subject, but we'll just park that for another meeting. Because I'd love to show you guys how to handle that thing. Because I said, it's it's a tool that doesn't get enough respect, but it's an invaluable one. It's as important as a plane.
So we'll have to have another program on that then.
Can you arrange that, Mike? Well, sure. I'm happy to do all this stuff. You know, as I said, I've been teaching this stuff for a long time. I've watched a lot of people struggle, you know, in learning how to do something. And I've always felt my goal as a teacher is to devise some method that will work for almost everybody. And it's not too hard to pick up. So something like this jig delivers results. And I'm a big believer in that. Sure, there's nothing wrong with doing it, you know, just bareback, no jig, no nothing, just guess on the angles. That's fine. It's just that you often get it wrong. This just guarantees that you're going to get it right. You can get right back to work. Okay.
All right, no more questions, so. All right, so that's going to do it for tonight's program. Tom, Lonnie, thanks for the informative and entertaining presentation.
Well, thank you, Lonnie,
Thank you, Tom.
my sidekick.
I've been reading about Isaac Newton. It's the only reason I thought you were getting closer to God. with your
Oh,
mechanical-
I see.
With your mechanical knowledge.
You're
Okay?
right.
So
Okay.
next month we'll be visiting Yale University. So
Oh.
make sure you check that out. We'll be going over some of their card tables that they have in their furniture collection. So
Oh,
stay
excellent.
tuned. So
Good.
that's what we got. Thanks everyone for joining and happy Valentine's Day. Thank you.